Welcome! This MakerDAO guide will walk you through using the MakerDAO system to trade, borrow, and save using Dai. For this video, you'll be expected to have a general understanding of crypto Web3 products, financial products, risk management, and MakerDAO. We'll be covering topics like using ETH as collateral to borrow Dai, trading Dai for ETH, and taking advantage of the Dai Savings Rate. I'll explain each concept in the video as it comes up, but if you need more information, make sure to check out the resources noted at the end of the video and in the description. With that covered, I'd like to introduce you to Dai. Dai is a cryptocurrency token on the Ethereum network. The value of one Dai is meant to always be close to $1. In other words, Dai's value is meant to be stable. That's why people call Dai and other price-stable cryptocurrencies stablecoins. The value behind Dai doesn't emerge out of nothing. Dai is secured by crypto assets deposited in the MakerDAO system by its users. Currently, Dai is backed by ETH and BAT, but more crypto assets are likely to be added in the future. For now, it works like this. When a user locks up ETH or BAT, they can mint new Dai. The deposited ETH or BAT can then be withdrawn in full when the generated Dai is paid back. The whole system is built using blockchain and smart contracts. This enables anyone to check at any time if all Dai in circulation is backed by deposited crypto assets. That means there's no intermediaries or organizations standing between you and your assets. The application we're using to interact with the MakerDAO protocol is called Oasis, and you can access it at oasis.app. Oasis is not one tool, but three. Oasis Trade, which is the decentralized crypto exchange. Oasis Borrow, the centerpiece of the whole system, which is used to generate new Dai. And finally, Oasis Save, which lets users put Dai in a Dai generating contract. As noted in the introduction, in this tutorial, we'll learn how to use all these tools, but let's start by discussing Oasis Borrow. Before I start using Oasis Borrow, I'll have to connect it with a wallet. Oasis Borrow is compatible with several wallets, both software and hardware. In this video, I'll use the popular web browser extension MetaMask, which is available for all major browsers. Quick side note here. If you're using MetaMask for the first time, don't forget to copy your seed phrase somewhere secure to ensure you don't lose access to your wallet. Moving on. MetaMask when launched will ask for a password, and then I'll have to allow it to connect with Oasis Borrow. I'm now looking at the main screen of Oasis Borrow. This is the overview pane. Let's see what's here. At the top right, I can see my connected wallet and public address. Below, I can check what cryptos I have in this wallet. As we can see, the wallet contains a bit more than one ETH, exactly 200 BAT, and 0 Dai. Here I can see the ETH and BAT price information in USD. Those prices come from many crypto exchanges and are delivered by a collection of price oracles. It's important to note that the prices used by the MakerDAO system are deliberately delayed by 1 hour from the market price. At the bottom, I can get some insight on MakerDAO as a whole. Collateralization, which is at 325% as of this recording, is an important piece of information. It means that all assets deposited in the MakerDAO system are worth more than 3 times the value of all minted Dai. So it's easy to calculate at the time of this video, there was more than $300 million locked in the system. To generate Dai, I have to lock crypto in what is called a vault. All Dai comes from Maker vaults. There's more than 4,000 vaults as we're recording this video. Let's create a new vault to learn how to use this key aspect of Oasis Borrow and the MakerDAO system. I can open an ETH or a BAT-based vault. My first one will be based on ETH, but before I proceed, let's review some important information. First, let's have a look at the stability fee. The stability fee is a fee for using the MakerDAO system that is charged for borrowed Dai. At this moment, the rate is 6% annually. Putting aside the fact the fee can change, that means if I draw 100 Dai from the vault, I'll have to pay back 106 a year from now. As noted though, that example assumes the stability fee won't change, which is not the case. The community gathers is needed to raise or lower the stability fee to ensure the stability of Dai, and thus I can expect the fee to change over time. When the stability fee changes, the system starts charging a higher or lower fee. The fee change has no impact on past fees, but it will change the fee owed moving forward. The fact that the fee is variable is an important consideration when generating Dai, because changes to the fee impact the total amount owed. If the fee gets high enough, I might want to close my vault or pay back some Dai. If the fee gets low enough, maybe incentive to borrow more Dai or to open a new vault. The community changes the fee to impact borrowing behavior, and thus as a borrower, it makes sense that I'm keeping track of the changes to the fee and responding to them. Liquidation ratio is another important concept. Liquidation ratio describes the minimum ratio of the value of deposited assets to the value of minted Dai. If I want to generate 100 Dai, I have to put $150 worth of ETH in my vault. At this moment, that would amount to slightly less than 1 ETH, but as you're probably well aware, the price of ETH can be very volatile. It is much more prudent to deposit ETH worth 3 or more times the amount of Dai I want to mint. As we saw on the previous screen, the average liquidation ratio for the whole system was 325%. What would happen if the price of ETH and its value fell below 150% of the value of my generated Dai? my vault would undergo the liquidation process, which is painful because it involves losing a percentage of my vault's worth, which in this case is 13%. This number is called the liquidation penalty. Let's move on. When opening a vault for the first time, I need to be aware that there are extra fees to pay due to the way numerous activities on the Ethereum network are rolled into one transaction when a vault is first set up. I'll have to configure my vault. Luckily, I only have to worry about these things when I first set up my vault, not every time I use it or manage it. To finish setting up my vault, I click Setup and the MetaMask window pops up, and then I confirm the transaction. The transaction is being confirmed on the blockchain right now. The screen shows 10 confirmations are required, which may take some time. It's completed. We can continue. At this step, I have to declare how much ETH I'd like to initially deposit in my vault. I can add more later, but I need to pick an amount for now. I want to make sure not to put all of my ETH into my vault. I'll need a small amount of ETH in my wallet to pay the Ethereum blockchain transaction costs. Plus, it's always a good idea to have some extra ETH on hand in case I need to quickly react to market changes. You can choose your own amount to deposit, but for this example, I'm going to deposit exactly 1 ETH. Next, I'll declare how much DAI to generate. The maximum is more than 100 DAI, but minting that amount will lead to the liquidation of my vault if the price of ETH dropped even a little. So to be on the safe side, I'll generate just 30 DAI. Putting 1 ETH into my vault and minting 30 DAI will set the collateralization ratio to more than 500%, which is substantially higher than the liquidation ratio. The price of ETH would actually have to drop to $45 to start the liquidation process. Although there's always a risk of liquidation if the price of the underlying crypto asset goes low enough, unless I want to actively manage my vault, keep an eye on the changes to stability fee, etc., I can now continue knowing that I've set a reasonable buffer between my vault and liquidation for the time being. Oasis confirms once again if I'm okay with all the numbers. I also have to accept the terms of service and acknowledge that I'm aware that the stability fee is variable. Remember, we said the stability fee was adjusted by the community and could change. Next, I click Open Vault and confirm the transaction of sending 1 ETH and opening the vault in MetaMask. At this point, I can wait until it's confirmed or exit Oasis Borrow. I'll wait. And it's done. The vault has been created. Now I'll click Exit. We can see the vault's number is 4041, and there's 30 DAI in my wallet. In the main part of the screen, the liquidation price and collateralization ratio are visible. The numbers are the same we saw previously. At the bottom of the screen, a full history of actions is displayed. We can see the opening the vault, depositing of 1 ETH, and drawing 30 DAI there. The most important part is in the middle. Using those buttons, I can interact with my vault. I can add more ETH to the vault or withdraw ETH from it. But as you can see, it's not possible to withdraw all ETH, since it would cause the collateralization ratio to drop below 150% and my vault would be liquidated. It's also possible to pay back some or all of the debt, or to do the opposite, generate more DAI. The collateralization ratio of this vault is pretty high, so I'll mint 50 more DAI. After entering 50 under how much DAI I'd like to generate, a warning appears to show me that this amount would put my vault into liquidation risk. Scrolling down, I can check what the vault parameters would be after drawing 50 additional DAI. The liquidation price would go up to $120 per ETH, and the collateralization ratio would drop to 200%. Those values are risky, so the system's warned me. As a rule of thumb, we want to heed any warning that Oasis gives us. So to stay on the safe side, I'll generate just 30 DAI. I'll confirm the transaction in MetaMask. The transaction has been mined on the blockchain, and I can see it in my vault's history. There's now 60 DAI in my wallet. That's twice the previous amount, so the liquidation price also went up 2 times. The collateralization ratio is now lower as well. Let me check if we can see the newly minted DAI in MetaMask. Not all tokens are visible in MetaMask until they're added. So I'll add the DAI token now. To do that, I click Add Token, and then I enter DAI into the search box, select it from the list, and then click Next. Here I can see my balance of 60 DAI. Now I can add DAI to the tokens displayed by MetaMask by clicking the Add Token button. And I'm done. DAI is now visible in MetaMask. Let's go to the overview screen in Oasis. Here I can see the most important information about my vault. If I would like to see more or interact with it, I can click Manage Vault or click its title in the sidebar. But let's do something different now. I'm going to use those BAT tokens sitting in my wallet and open a second vault. Here we can see a screen you may recognize from when I opened the first vault. As you can see, the parameters for the BAT vault are the same as for the ETH vault. I went through the configuration process before, so I don't need to do it again. However, since BAT is an ERC20 token, I have to allow MetaMask to use it. So I'll confirm the process in MetaMask, and when the transaction is done, continue to the next step. For this example, I'll deposit all 200 BAT. That allows me to generate a maximum of 28 Dai out of the new vault. But since generating the max amount isn't a good idea, I'll try 20 Dai instead. The warning about the liquidation risk is displayed. 20 Dai is the minimum amount that the MakerDAO system allows one to draw from a single vault. So I can't enter a smaller number here. So generally I'd heed this warning, but since I can't borrow less than the minimum, since I won't keep the vault open long, and since it's somewhat unlikely to lose a quarter of the value of BAT suddenly, at least for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to take the risk. Now I confirm the choice. Upon confirmation, I can see the overview screen with 2 vaults this time, each one with different parameters. I generated a total of 80 Dai from them. All generated Dai are the same. There's no separate ETH-based Dai or BAT-based Dai, so whether I'm borrowing, trading, spending, or paying back the vault, all Dai is the same. Now that I have my Dai, I can do what I please. I can go shopping, I can give my Dai to charity, or do whatever. What I do with my Dai is up to me. The only thing I have to remember is that I'll have to pay back the Dai owed plus the stability fee to get my collateral back out of the vaults I created. I can see the debt amount on my screen and it looks like it's equal to the amount generated, but that's not exactly true. There's a small, not yet visible difference, and the debt is actually slightly higher than the Dai that has been borrowed. Even though we can see the total value of all assets in both vaults, please remember that the system treats and liquidates, if necessary, each vault separately. Given that my debt is increasing every second now, I'm going to find a way to get some income from my Dai to offset that. Although borrowing Dai from Oasis Borrow only to generate interest in Oasis Save will never be profitable, and therefore it's not the best way to use generated Dai, for the purposes of this tutorial, I'll take advantage of the current Dai Savings Rate and use Oasis Save to get my Dai generating some income for me. Anyone can earn Dai by depositing their Dai in Oasis Save. The yearly rate at which Dai is earned is called the Dai Savings Rate, or DSR. The current DSR is 6%. Assuming the DSR doesn't change, that means if I keep 100 Dai in Oasis Save for a year, I'll have 106 at the end of the year. In other words, the DSR works just like the stability fee, but instead of owing Dai for borrowing, you're generating Dai while you save. With that in mind, like the stability fee, the DSR is also variable. It's also subject to change by the community. And thus, like the stability fee, the DSR is not going to remain at 6% for a full year. Really, what's going to happen is both rates are going to change. Still, since both rates are currently the same right now while we're doing this tutorial, for the purposes of the tutorial, I'm going to take advantage of the rates and generate some interest using Dai I borrowed earlier in the video to offset my stability fee. Oasis Save is quite straightforward to use. In the Deposit tab, I simply have to declare how many Dai I'm depositing. Then I click Deposit and confirm in MetaMask. I'll skip showing you the MetaMask confirmation pop-ups from now on, but if you need to see a refresher, you can just rewatch the previous parts of the video. And there we go. The value of Dai deposited in Oasis Save is now constantly increasing. So what else can we do with Dai? I can buy other cryptocurrencies with it. So we have the perfect tool for that. Let's use Oasis Trade for that purpose. I could use many different exchanges to trade with Dai, but Oasis Trade is one of the biggest decentralized exchanges out there. Various Ethereum-based tokens can be traded there, and I can also use Oasis Trade to buy or sell ETH. Oasis Trade is a pretty complex and sophisticated tool, but I'll skip most of the features for now and focus on the basics. Since I want to buy ETH using Dai, and since the amount of ETH I want to buy is small, I can skip using limit orders and use the Instant tab to buy some ETH near the current market price without worrying too much about things like slippage. First, I have to set the direction of the trade. I want to exchange Dai for ETH, so I can do that here by clicking the arrow button. Now I can enter the amount of Dai I want to use. I'm going to use all 50 remaining Dai. I can see the estimated number of Dai I'll receive. It's estimated because some small changes can take place while the transaction is being confirmed by the blockchain. But I don't have to worry too much because if the ETH price would change by more than 2%, the transaction won't be executed. As we can see in the order details, 2% is the slippage limit. I'll start the transaction. Now I'll wait for confirmation. As we can see, the transaction is completed. Now I'll go back to Oasis Borrow with the ETH I just got. My wallet's updated now. I can find the Dai deposited in Oasis Save under the DSR label. I can also see the freshly bought ETH in there. Now, let's check out my ETH vault. I've just bought some additional ETH using some Dai I generated from my vault. If the price of ETH goes up by more than 6% during the year, give or take changes to the stability fee, I can sell it for Dai, pay back the Dai debt, and even keep some profit after paying back the stability fee. However, if instead the price of ETH falls below my liquidation price, I'll face liquidation. One way to decrease my risk is to deposit some or all of the ETH I just got into my ETH-based vault to lower my liquidation price. Once more, I want to make sure I don't put all of my ETH into my vault. I need some ETH to pay for transactions, and as should be clear by now, it's good to have some extra ETH on hand in case I need to lower my liquidation price in an emergency. So given that, I'll put 0.3 ETH into my vault. I can see the liquidation price is now lower and the collateralization ratio is now higher. I'll confirm the transaction. After the transaction is done, I can see the liquidation price is now below $70. Let's assume for the purposes of this tutorial that I'm optimistic about the price of ETH and willing to take some extra risk and generate a bit more Dai from this vault. I'll mint an additional 18 Dai. Let's look at the transactions I just did. I started with a vault containing 1 ETH. With the 60 Dai I got from that, the liquidation price was $90. Then I used some of those Dai to purchase additional ETH on Oasis trade, and I put that ETH into my vault. The liquidation price went down below $70. Then I minted 18 Dai, which gave me 78 Dai in total from that vault. And the liquidation price again rose to become $90. How is that possible? Does the risk stay the same? Not really. I started with 1 ETH in my vault, and now I have 1.3 ETH in there. So even though my liquidation price is the same, the amount I'm risking is higher. Now I can lose 13% of 1.3 ETH in the case of liquidation, and not just 13% of 1 ETH. I also have to remember the liquidation price slowly creeps up as the stability fees are added to my debt. That's one of the reasons I want to keep an eye on my vault. Let's go and check Oasis Save now. The deposit value has grown even more, but the interest is still very small. I can withdraw from Save at any time, so I'll click the Withdraw tab. To withdraw all, including interest, I'll use Set Max and click Withdraw. The transaction has been confirmed. I have 48 Dai now. Since I have some Dai, it's probably a good idea to pay back my BAT vault, as it is marked as risky by the system. I'll go to my BAT vault and use Payback to return the borrowed Dai. First, I have to unlock the Dai using MetaMask. This has to be done only once. In the meantime, the price of BAT went up slightly. The collateralization ratio is now higher at 216%, but my vault is still considered risky, so let's pay back the debt as planned. I can now see that I have to pay back a bit more Dai than I minted from my vault. This is because of the stability fee. Setmax is smart enough to use the exact amount needed to pay back all debt without leaving any dust in the vault. It's done. I have no more debt in this vault. The BAT's still there, and now I can withdraw it freely. To do so, I'll enter 200 or use Setmax and hit confirm. 200 BAT is back in my wallet and my vault is empty. Let's look at the overview window. The BAT vault is now empty, but cannot be closed. Closing the vault is not necessary, and having an open empty vault is nothing to worry about. It doesn't cost anything to keep an empty vault open. The other vault, the one with 1.3 ETH, is still active, however, and I have to keep an eye on the ETH price to protect it from liquidation. Fortunately, as MakerDAO price fees are delayed for 1 hour, I have a time buffer in case of the price dropping below 90 USD on most exchanges. There's also 28 Dai at my disposal. Holding on to borrowed Dai and doing nothing with it is a good idea, so I should either use my remaining Dai to lower my liquidation risk, or put the Dai into Oasis Save to at least partially cover the stability fee until I'm ready to pay back the Dai I borrowed. We're approaching the end of this tutorial, but your MakerDAO adventure doesn't end here. There's lots to discover and you probably have lots of questions. How is it possible that Dai keeps a peg with the dollar? What's the source of the Dai you earned using Oasis Save? Perhaps you're wondering who decides what the DSR rate and stability fee is. Or maybe you'd just like to know what the future of MakerDAO looks like and how you can contribute to it. The MakerDAO homepage gives you up-to-date information on the project. You'll find all the news, developer documentation, and official social channels related to Maker there. And don't forget to check new blog posts, which are linked there too. The ecosystem around MakerDAO is thriving. Awesome MakerDAO is the ultimate resource for information about both official and third-party resources. If you're looking for tools, articles, FAQs, guides, and analysis, you'll find it there. There's also a list of exchanges supporting Dai and much more. MakerDAO is developed by the community. If you'd like to join it, the community development page will help you with all the necessary guidelines. Perhaps you'd like to host a meetup or hackathon, or maybe you have an idea for a project that could enhance the ecosystem and you need a grant for it. Or maybe you'd like to join the team translating MakerDAO resources into various languages. We're waiting for you. Thanks again for watching.